What stories do we have the right to tell? Do our experiences limit our ability to express ideas or emotions or thoughts? Do our experiences relegate us to a place to where we cannot write fiction about things in which we have never experienced? I don't believe Arthur C. Clarke experienced anything that he wrote about on a scientific level as far as future events come. To me, fiction is a playground of freedom. I mean, you have the ability to write and express thoughts and feelings that you could never really experience in real life or never really have. If someone writes a piece of fiction about a serial killer and they've never been a serial killer, is that discriminatory for them to have the opportunity to write that? I had a conversation with a good friend talking about the podcast and different topics, and she came up with a book that I had not read called American Dirt. I believe the author's name is Jenny Cummings. I want to preface this very, very quickly by I have not read the book. It's not my type of book. I'm probably not going to read the book. I'm not overeducated in this situation, and there's a reason for that. It's very easy for me to look this lady up, to take the time to learn everything about her. But does that influence how I feel about the situation when the situation is the issue? Apparently this lady has written a book, a fictionalized book, that to some degree, let's give it this is the most basic of explanation of the book, which is all that I have. She is writing a fictional story about a family from Mexico, illegal immigrants, and their struggle here and struggle with deportation and immigration and things of that nature. Apparently, a lot of people are very up in arms because this is a white, middle-aged American lady who knows nothing about this situation, and they feel she doesn't have the right to write fiction about the situation. This will be a hard podcast for me to do because I don't like to be angry, and I don't generally get angry. That statement that this lady doesn't have the right to create fiction about something she's never experienced is the most ignorant, pathetic statement I've ever heard in my life. As an author, you have the right to create whatever you want. Especially when it comes to fiction, you have a responsibility to truth and fact when your book is based in truth and fact, or your work is based in truth and fact. We don't hold the media to such high scrutiny, obviously. They're simply feeding us opinion 23 and a half hours a day. We don't hold all newspapers to that standard. The newspapers that we respect still, we hold to that standard, a standard of truth and fact and factual reporting. But an op-ed, if someone writes an opinion-based piece, it can have facts sprinkled in, but if someone from New York, and trust me, it's been done numerous times, writes an opinion piece about Eastern Kentucky, well, they don't have the first-hand experience. They can't tell you what our life is and how we exist. But they do so, and they have the right to do so. It's an opinion piece. Opinions are like that. They're not based on fact. Something similar, and I ignored this just as much, happened with a book called Hillbilly Elegy, I believe. I didn't pay it any attention. And it's people from here being in an uproar, I believe, was what I got from that. I don't understand. I don't understand being offended all the time. I don't understand being upset all the time. That's on a different level than being upset because a fiction writer produced a work of fiction that they'd never experienced. I have a short story almost done. It's about the 1940s. I say that it's been done for a while. I have a bad habit with short stories of rewriting, and this has become a medium-length story more than a short story. It's about mid to late 30s Eastern Kentucky. I wasn't alive during that time. It's about mining. I've never been a miner. And it's in a large part about African American miners and mine workers from away from here. I am not an African American, and I've lived in Eastern Kentucky my whole life, so I have no basis for personal identification on a superficial level with any of these things. But it's a work of fiction, and so I have the right to do it. I don't ask for the right. I refuse. I have the right to do it. This lady, again, I'll probably never read this story. It could be pretentious and ridiculous, or it could be wonderful. It's not a knock against her. I wouldn't give it the respect it deserves if I'm reading it, because it's not something that I'm extremely intrigued in. Now, for some reason, I may read a page or two of it, and if it seems like it may capture me, then I may go back and listen to it. Read it. But even if the book's horrible, I have no qualms with what she's done. She's wrote a piece of fiction. We've got to this pathetic state that can be an issue, and I don't understand it. But let's look at a couple of the things that I've not researched this. I'm not going to give something like this a lot of time. The fact that I'm doing a podcast about it is just in case somebody else like me out there is like, I heard about that. I want a very, very uninformed snippet of what's going on, because you know what, it's just not, I'm not putting the time into it. I had to look for a couple little quotes, a couple of things here and there. That way I at least somewhat knew what was going on. Apparently, the accusation has been made that this particular story has been written and told numerous times by women of color, I guess, or of Mexican heritage, or people who have experienced this. And it has never gained the acknowledgement and success that this has gained. On the other hand, I read a statement that said many people of Mexican descent who have this story to tell would not have the opportunity to tell this in the manner in which this woman's had. Let's take the second one and just knock it out real quick. Kindle Direct Publishing. Just one of many. But Kindle Direct Publishing actually does not cost you a dime. You can write, create, publish, and sell your books on Amazon. And if you don't ever buy a book yourself, if you only write it, create it, and submit it and have it put on Amazon, you physically are not out a single dime. You could use public access, internet, computers from the library. There's no reason why that story could not be written and be told. But there would be extreme cases, maybe in Mexico or maybe in areas of extreme poverty where they don't have access. And that's going to be a small percentage, but you could get that story out if you have that story and it's better than this woman's version. That's probably part of it is maybe this woman is a better author than some of the people that came before. Maybe she's horrible, and it's, but that takes care of the second. The first one is more in line with how the book's doing and the success of the book. All I can do is tell you from my personal experience of writing a book. There's two, from where I'm at, from where I'm from, and I feel that This is probably very likely true in other areas of the country. I would have to believe it's completely the same everywhere else. But here, I wrote my book and I encountered three things. One, a national literary scene. It's the big scene. It's the novels and the 50 Shades of Grey and more than likely This American Dirt and books of that ilk. They are written to make money, to capitalize on emotion, popular ideas, and things that grab attention. They're commercialized, and they're used to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you enjoy making or buying or taking in, that is what it is. And no, unless you can fit into that formula, you would never get the opportunity that this woman has if she indeed falls in to that category, because you're not part of that group. That group is open at any time to a big seller, a self-published, or anything that can generate revenue, because it's all about revenue. Then there's the national scene that is more refined and more about the art and about real literature and about the purity of literature. They're snobs, and you have to cater to their snobbish mentality, and you have to cater to their ideals and their beliefs, and you have to not necessarily be real and true, but you have to say the things that they find acceptable. And you must denounce the things that they find wrong. You very well may not fall into that category. As this woman, Jeannie Cummins, she may or may not fall into that category. But if you're just an average, say, woman, because this is a female author of Mexican descent who's had this issue and wrote this story, if you're not in that clique, you're not going to be recognized like this. And again, I can't say that this woman's, I don't know which category she falls into. Now, if you get enough success and the story you're trying to tell and the book you're trying to produce hits all the triggers, hits all the social points that they want to hit, then you easily could be brought into that. But being recognized by either one of the national two groups would be hard. That doesn't take away your ability to tell the story or to print the story. Not now. It's 2020. That's a non-issue. Now, the third level of literature is often the very local level or the state level. It will be dependent upon your state, and in my opinion, in my state, it's very snobbish and very skewed in one direction of thought and process, and it has a it has a feeling of pretentiousness. I mean, it just does to me. That's how I feel about it, and I have really no qualms about saying that. I wrote my book with the intent of saying what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, without playing to any predetermined or pre-established sect of people, and just writing what I wanted to write. And I think that's what 90% of authors do. Just occasionally one of these groups will pick them up, or occasionally, unfortunately, one of these groups will suck them in and change them. But if you're not a member of one of those three groups, even if you write a good story about something you are familiar with, something that is personal to you, it is not a guarantee that that will be a success. This woman may be part of one of those groups, and it is a guaranteed success for her. It has nothing to do with her color or anything of that nature as far as this goes, because you have, in the climate that we're in, a really well-written book about a topic of this nature by a Mexican-American or Mexican citizen who has had the immigration process and actually lived through this, that would be a welcome and admired story in a lot of ways to be told. It would be all pluses, all positives for that. Maybe simply the story's not been told in the manner that this lady told it, or to the level of writing ability that this lady's told it, or to the level of recognition because of inability to get the story in the right hands. It's not systemic racism. It's not... Look, the opportunity to do so is there. If we know for sure this story's been told as good by someone else who has experience, then that reflects more on us as consumers, which I feel is the real problem. We buy crap, then crap becomes popular. We buy good stuff becomes popular. We don't buy good work often. Good work's often overlooked. Mediocre work's often overlooked. Trust me, mine was overlooked, and I'm fine with that. I understand that my work's mediocre. I have no preconceived notions, no delusions of grandeur. I know that there's a lot of people that do what I do and do it better than me, but I still felt I needed to express myself and get that out, and I have no qualms about how I did it. But if we start saying you can only write fiction about things that you have direct experience with, then we lose War of the Worlds. We lose The Day the Earth Stood Still. I mean, because this translates to movies, to music. You know, we lose everything that Stephen King wrote. I mean, snippets maybe of his youth are in there, but I don't think he's ever messed with a killer clown. We lose killer clowns from outer space. That is a national tragedy. I enjoy that movie greatly. What kind of negative impact does it have on entertainment? Does it have on literature? I don't believe Poe had a raven actually knocking at his chamber door. I don't believe. I wasn't there. But I'd have to assume, based on just the logic of the situation, that didn't happen. Are we that worried about our insatiable need to be offended that we can't comprehend that fiction is fiction? And if we're saying there's an inequality in who is allowed to be a successful author and who isn't, then that is purely dependent upon the public. That is dependent upon the consumer. We can't change that by rules and laws just because we want to, because that's not right. That's not fair. There has to be the freedom of expression, the freedom to write about things that you've never experienced, that you've never known, to write with imagination and passion and love, and to put onto paper an ideal uniquely your own, or at least an ideal bred from an internal drive to create, regardless of the topic. If we do that, and then we as consumers look for the highest level of that expression, then the highest level of that expression will prosper. But it will never outgrow and outperform the mediocre. We love entertainment. And sometimes things that are purely entertaining are mediocre. Mediocre in regards of what literary snobs would consider fine literature. But that doesn't mean they're mediocre in storytelling or expression or how they make the reader feel. I don't know if any of the people who read my poetry book and said, it's a little too hillbilly-ish. I don't know if those people have ever read a Louis L'Amour book. And if they had, I don't know if they just consider Louis L'Amour a cheap entertainment novel that has no merit, or if they consider it great work. But I think Louis L'Amour tells a story as good as anyone. My favorite book is A Catcher in the Rye. But I think Louis L'Amour can entertain me. I know Louis L'Amour can entertain me just as much. That passion, that desire, the place he can put me in, the worlds, the experiences I can have in the Wild West that I never experienced for a moment, that he never experienced. It's amazing, his ability to do so. It really is. I don't know Harper Lee's experiences in life, but I know that when I read To Kill a Mockingbird, the way it moves me, the way it makes me feel, it doesn't matter her race, color, religion, anything. What matters is what I'm able to feel when I read that. I was told once that Of Mice and Men is kind of like pop music for literature. I'm sorry. I love Of Mice and Men and the story it tells, and that's what literature can do. I don't know if Poe personally experienced every short story topic that he wrote about. I would have to assume he did not. Logic would only dictate that. But where he can take me and where he can put me, to me, that's just art. It's just art. And I'm not going to tell you that Jenny Cummings' American Dirt is not art. Not because of her color or her race or her lack of immigration experience. I'm not going to tell you it is, because I've not read it. I'm going to tell you it is. I am going to tell you it is. Even if it's not good, even if it's bad, even if it's generic, it's art. It's what she created. But my understanding is it's selling very well. And the Hillbilly Elegy, the same thing. I've not read it. I'm not going to tell you it's bad, it's not good. I'll tell you it's art. It was produced, it was made. I can't tell you the extent or the level at which the person cared about it when they made it, but they did make it. And can ask for a lot more. That's how many people that criticize this lady, how many people that criticize books like this have an ideal, have a desire, have a want, have a yearning to write and create something themselves, or just create anything in any form themselves, but they do not do so out of fear, out of repercussion of what others will think about it. Well, your cowardliness does not allow you the ability to be a critic. You have the right to feel how you feel about things. We all do. We just don't have the right to tell someone they can't do it. If someone wants to write the most beautiful, mediocre poetry of all time, discussing love poetry, and we don't have any right to stop them from doing so. If someone wants to purposely write poor poetry of illest conception, with no value and no desire to put value in it, we don't have the right to stop them. If someone wants to write and produce hate speech, I don't believe we have the right to stop them. What we have the right to do is to express our beliefs through our actions, to support our beliefs through our actions, and to support those who further us as people through our actions. And we have the right to be wrong. We have the right to disagree. We have the right to a lot of things, but most of all, we have the right to freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of thought. See, if you start to take the freedom of speech, then you instantly start to take the freedom of thought. I love to write short stories. I don't publish them. They are in the works. There's supposed to be at least one or two in the next book, depending on what I feel comfortable with. I've wrote science fiction short stories. I've wrote horror type short stories, fictitious historical short stories, dramatized short stories, all about things I never experienced, all from my imagination. If this lady's imagination is just better than everybody else's, she has the ability to pen it to paper better than everybody else, you can't punish her for that. And if she's a horrible person with a horrible imagination and wrote horrible things, she has the right to do so. Can't punish her for that, but we can just not partake, not support, express who we are based on those things. Something to think about. I'm very curious about how other people feel about it. So let me know how you really feel about it. Send me, you can get me on, oh wow, I moved all my papers where everything's written down. But you can get me email-wise at jperk213@gmail.com or authorjperk@gmail.com. Probably go with the author J Perk. You can find me on Facebook at author J Perkins. You can find me. Just look. If you're local to the area I live in, Eastern Kentucky, my books are only available in Eastern Kentucky at the Red Spotted Newt, READ, Red Spotted Newt in Hazard, Kentucky. They're open Wednesday through Saturday, I believe, 10 to 6, somewhere in there. An amazing local bookstore. They've got some really great books. They've got a lot of good stuff there. But you can get my books there. That's the only place you can get them locally. If you're not local, the only other place you can get them right now is on Amazon.com. That's Cold Kingdom. The one with my son. Everyone is different, just like me. And the boy was super hearing. So pick those up. Be sure to message me. Go to YouTube channel. It's J Perkins. Like, subscribe, share, do all that great stuff. Don't be sucky to other people.